Sayonara TV.
Sutek, what about the statement that Tahuti made when he said that white people are nothing but light-skinned Africans? Do you agree to a certain extent to that? And if so, why?
Well, I don't know the context in which he made the statement. If he's trying to say that the Caucasian came from the African, his lineage goes back to the African, then I can't dispute that because I don't have the scientific knowledge to dispute it. You know, everything that I've read and everything that modern science says is that all people of the planet Earth delineate from the African. So if that's what he's talking about, then yeah, okay, based on my current knowledge, I would have to agree with that.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Why not? Go into it.
It's very simple. Okay, there are two, when you look at the blood types, okay, there's 4 basic blood types, but the 4 basic blood types have 2 categories. You have Rh negative and you have Rh positive, okay? Now, when you're dealing with Rh, first let's deal with the 4 blood types, O, B, AB, and A. When you're dealing with B, A, and AB blood types, you're dealing with antigens or fungus that have attach themselves to the blood and are now passed on genetically through the parents, okay? The O blood type is the original blood type, and that's why the O blood type can be a donor to any other blood type. However, it cannot receive blood from any other blood types because those blood types will infect it, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, when you're dealing with negative, O negative, or A negative, or AB negative, or AB positive, what you're dealing with is 2 separate origins of 2 different people.
Damn. This is a House of Consciousness Productions. Make no mistake about it. Is the white man a light-skinned African? This will be a powerful discussion with special guest speakers, Dr. Jack Felder, Brother Sutek, Brother Muhammad, Professor Larry, and the main event, Natural Tahuti and Minister Inky. They will square off in the ring, the battle of truth. Who has the correct information?
I mean, I know that race doesn't exist. We're all of the human race. Everybody came out of Africa. But it's white people who made the distinction. They made race important.
Yeah, but if everybody came from black, right? Yeah. They always say that 1 drop of black blood means you black. Don't they say that?
But the white man said that. I never said that. The white man said that.
Well, I heard a lot of our teachers say that, Dr. Khalid.
No, they say it because they've been programmed. They've been programmed to say that. If you go to North Africa, you go to Morocco, right? 1 drop of white blood make you white in North Africa. That's why Lena Horne and those could be accepted as white in North Africa, whereby Roberta Fleck and those accepted as black. They're rejected.
Well, what about the theory of Sheikh Anta Diop?
He proved that the Egyptians were black by he's showing the square centimeters of melanin of the African mummy skin were black.
Yeah, but so what I'm talking about is Sheikh Anta Diop also said that the white man came out of Africa, migrated up into Europe, and got stuck over there through the period of the Ice Age.
No, not the white man migrated. Black people migrated to Europe, and they got caught in the Ice Age, and over a period of time they're lightening up.
That's not what Sheikh said. Sheikh don't say that. His theory is that
he said the same thing. He said he didn't say white people left Africa. He said Africa left Africa.
Right, exactly.
He said white people left Africa.
No. All right,
that's what you said. Yeah, you made a mistake.
Yeah, I made a mistake on that.
Yeah, so
but Sheikh Anta Diop theory is that the African left Africa, went up into Europe, and got stuck over there through a period of time. That's what changed his complexion, changed his hair.
I agree with that 100%. I'm not saying white people didn't come from black people.
Then if you agree with that, then Tahuti is right.
No, but look, you got to understand something. Today world whites are carrying out this white supremacist barbaric racism for the last 400 years. Now, they may be biologically descendants of Africans, but mentally they are not Africans. They're killing us. They're enslaving us.
So here's the point that I'm making again.
What?
That means you do agree with Natural Tahuti. You agree with him?
No, I'm not going to agree with that. Africans is African.
Who is the original people of the planet Earth?
The African.
Where do the white man come from?
The caves.
But where do we come from, though?
Where did he come from?
Yeah.
The Caucasus Mountains.
Did he come from us?
Of course he come from us.
So if he come from us, these are the questions that I'm posing to you. If he come from you, one drop of black blood, meaning
he's black.
There you go. So did he come from
black?
Oh, I'm gonna get to you.
But don't forget, as far as the race structure.
Right.
White and white makes white people.
There's no such thing as race. See, the white man came up with race.
Okay.
All right. A race has a starting point and a finish line. We're not dealing with race.
Is he an African?
No.
Hold on a second. You got to ask yourself, well, what makes up an African? Culturally, spiritually, mentally? Is he an African?
We're talking about physical traits.
The only physical trait that's different is what? What are the physical traits that are different from the Caucasian and the African? The skin and what else?
I can tell you.
That's what I'm asking.
Now, the reason why it's called RH negative or your RH type or RH positive is because the RH stands for rhesus monkey. Okay? The rhesus monkey is where the Europeans have their lineage from. Okay? They stem from the rhesus monkey. Okay? African people do not. Our origins have yet to be discovered on this planet.
All right,
there's no origin for Africans on this planet. Now, if you take back a few years ago, you would notice that Oprah Winfrey and all of those popular people were promoting the blood type testing to find out your ancestry.
Right.
So what they did was they grouped people into what they call DNA haplogroups. Okay, and that was able to trace the Europeans back to I believe it was 10 clans of Europeans where they originated in the European mountains. Okay, Africans had 13 origins. Now the Europeans only go back as far as I believe 50,000 years. 50,000 years is how long they've been on this planet, and they were evolved. So when you're dealing with the theory of evolution, that's dealing with European history, and that's why Europeans have such a high rate of skin cancer right now, is because they come from the rhesus monkey and they no longer wear the hair, they no longer wear the fur on their skin to cover their skin.
That's what you're saying, basically it's genetic.
It's absolutely genetic.
All right, but
that's why when you look at, that's why when you look at the biological element of life, okay, because you said over and over, Sinetta, we're dealing with humans. When you're dealing with humans, the prefix to man as far as human is hue. So when you're dealing with hue, you're dealing with color. The thing that provides color in a person is the melanin molecule. Their melanin molecule is completely different than ours, okay? There's two types of melanin. You have eumelanin and you have pheomelanin. Eumelanin is spelled E-U-M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Pheomelanin is spelled P-H-A-E-M-E-L-A-N-I-N. It's completely different. The melanin molecule that we possess has selenium at its core. The melanin molecule that they possess has sulfur at its core. That's why the foods and the diets that we eat are so important, because it affects us differently. If they have a sulfur's an acid, it's a very powerful acid. So if they have acid at the core of their genetic structure, eating an acidic diet is going to affect them differently. Hence, you notice that 5% of Europeans are lactose intolerant, where 95% of African people are lactose intolerant.
Wow.
And that's due only to bloodline mixing over thousands and thousands of years. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. Now,
so let me ask you, so where do you suppose the white man come from?
The rhesus monkey. When you're dealing with the theory,
the rhesus monkey.
Absolutely. When you're dealing with the theory of evolution, you're dealing with the Europeans' history and how they came about. In fact, when they did the DNA haplogroup studies, they tested, and there has never, ever been an African that has any ounce of caveman blood in his genetics, in his mitochondria. DNA and that's what they use for the basis of the test.
Now you basically saying, I noticed that they always show it on National Geographic shows and everything, saying that or we came from apes. We didn't come from apes.
Absolutely
White people
not.
came from apes.
Absolutely.
You understand? They always predicted that.
But what you got to deal with is this. And that's why it's so important for us to document our own information. When we document our information, we tell our story. Those are his venues paid for by his money, so he's going to tell his story, which puts him in the best light possible.
Right.
But science tells a whole nother story, and that's why our people dealt with. You know, when we deal with religion now, it's based on mystery and it's based on belief and things like that. When we dealt with our ancestors was science, fact. Okay, if it couldn't be proven, then we didn't deal with it.
All right, so let me ask you.
I'm going to ask him a question.
That's what I'm coming to you to see. Do you agree with anything that the brother is saying?
Well, I don't know anything about what he said. You know, this is a subject that obviously he studied.
Right.
You understand? So I'm not in a position to question his information. I can just take it in, and if I feel, do research on it.
Right.
But what I want to ask him is, the rhesus monkey, what part of the world is he indigenous to?
All over.
All over the world.
All over the world. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you got rhesus monkeys here in North America?
When you go back, here's the thing. When you go back, because you got to go back, okay, if you're going to deal with this subject, you got to go back a few thousand, tens of thousands, and then even hundreds of thousands of years, because you're looking at the geography of the world changing. Okay. When you deal with the Sahara Desert and places like that, those places were once fertile, lush with vegetation. So you're looking at the landscape changing over time. So when we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of years ago, the world was a different looking place. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of places that are now barren, that don't have life or don't support life, like deserts and colder climates, when you go back that far, were actually lush with vegetation. So when you go up into frozen climates, there's no life up there. And this is where the flesh eating became, this is where the Europeans started practicing the flesh eating, because there was no vegetation there. Okay, so even when you go back to the core of the Europeans' history, he wasn't a flesh eater. That was something that he had to adapt to from being in frozen climates without vegetation. Okay, and when you look at 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 years ago, one of the main things that they were coming into Africa for was the herbs and the vegetation and our medical science.
Hold up, wasn't he always in Europe in the cold climate? Or he was traced out of Africa?
Well, when you go deeper into it, you're gonna realize that our ancestors genetically, we enhanced, we created. So that's where a lot of the confusion is coming in, where you have a lot of our scholars saying that he came from us and that we created him. They think that that's something that, a man and a woman came together and created him like that. No, we genetically created him in a test tube. And when you look back into our books, into our history records, you see.
Yeah, but the history speaks about how the whites came in Egypt and destroyed Egypt. You understand? That's what the history talks about.
The Hyksos and things like that.
These white people, the one thing about the African people, the Egyptian, I'm talking about the time of the Egyptian people, they let people come in because they were so peaceful people. They was building.
No. That's baloney. We never let anybody come in.
So
we
how
was washing niggas. Listen, they came in. First of all, the one most powerful aspect of the Europeans' fighting style, as far as war is concerned, is always been disease. It's always been biological warfare. Okay. So when you look at
the
leprosy, but even more than that, the things that were contagious,
the germs and all that.
The fact that we were so complacent, because when you even go back to the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth dynasties of Egypt, they had those sciences handed to them. Those sciences were handed to them. The pyramids were already standing. Our structures were already standing all around the globe.
Right.
In fact, the pyramids at Giza are some of the youngest pyramids on the planet. Okay? South America, China, all of those places have older pyramids.
Right.
So that science was handed down to those dynasties. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that the science was handed to them is because they took the science for granted. They didn't know disease.
All right.
When you go through the Old Kingdom, the first through the 13th kingdoms of first through the 13th dynasties of Egypt, they had no disease when you check their mummies.
All right. So let me ask you this.
Wow, that's very important.
You making that statement, that right there knocks out everything that Elijah Muhammad, Father Allah, brought to the people when they said that the white man was created in the laboratory.
That don't. It's true.
So you agree with Elijah Muhammad?
We genetically modified the rhesus monkey.
Okay.
We genetically evolved the rhesus monkey, and that's why when they dealing with the studies of the caveman, there's large gaps between his intellectual capacities, which is how they grouped them from Cro-Magnon and so on and so forth. They can't fill in those groups because there was no fill-ins for them. We genetically enhanced one and watched it grow. Then we saw its shortcomings, got rid of that group.
So you and Tahuti is in conflict because Tahuti don't believe in that teaching no more.
Well, I mean, science, R-H-E-S-U-S. I mean, he don't have to believe it. You know, Europeans have validated this science, and this is why they did such a big fuss about tracing the DNA and the haplogroups and the mitochondrial DNA, because they thought they was gonna find something that validated white supremacy, when all they found was black origin staring them in the face. In fact, it's ASPM genes in the brain that allows for one to be able to articulate or speak intelligently. Okay, they didn't even have ASPM genes in their brain 7,000, 8,000 years ago. So what does that mean in English? That means that only thing they could communicate was grunts back and forth to each other prior to 10,000 years. I mean, since 7,000, 8,000 years ago. So before 10,000 years ago, they couldn't have been, they couldn't have done anything intelligible. And this is proven scientific fact. Look, not in our laboratories, it's in their laboratories.
Okay, Tahuti will break down his point. That the white man is a light-skinned African.
Well, I mean, I already know his point, because his point is based on the studies that a lot of our scholars have done. Unfortunately, a lot of our scholars, our earlier scholars, they were educated in European schools. So they have the European philosophy that they built their foundation on. So they went out and with the foundation that they got in the European schools, went and did their own research into Afrocentrism and Africa and things of that nature. However, they still had a lot of foundation that was built in those European schools. It just is what it is. Okay.
All right.
So I know the the community may get at Minister Inky, but you can't fight science. It is what it is. And O negative blood is very is the most purest blood on the planet. So the next thing would be, why is it that white people have O negative blood just like black people have O negative blood? The reason being is because the bloodlines have been mixed for thousands of years, okay? But when you trace the origin, they would tell you if you open up any book, O blood type is the original, and the difference between O negative and O positive is that O negative, they have no scientific origin on this planet for O negative blood type, but they do know that O positive comes from rhesus monkeys, and that's Google searchable.
Sutek, what you got for us, brother?
I just looked up rhesus monkey on Google, and this is what it says. It's a lot here. I'll just read the first couple of paragraphs. It said the rhesus macaque, spelled M-A-C-A-Q-U-E, but they also put in parentheses rhesus monkey, spelled M-O-N-K-E-Y. Is an abundant primate species that diverged from the ancestors of Homo sapiens about 25 million years ago. Because they are genetically and physiologically similar to humans, rhesus monkeys are the most widely used non-human primate in basic and applied biomedical research.
Wow.
We determined that the genome sequence of an Indian origin macaca, mulatta female, they're referring to the monkey, and compared the data with chimpanzees and humans to reveal the structure of ancestral primate genomes and to identify evidence for positive selection and lineage-specific expansions and contractions of gene females. A comparison of sequences from individual animals was used to investigate their underlying genetic diversity. The complete description of the Mackay genome blueprint enhances the utility of this animal model for biomedical research and improves our understanding of the basic biology of the species. The end of that is just a lot of scientific stuff on why they use the monkey in tests.
Well, no.
Hold on a second. Let me just finish.
For experimental things, right?
But the beginning of it, first part, what I said, backs up what he says, but in reverse. They're saying that the monkey came from the human.
25 million years
25 million years ago.
Now here's the fly thing.
And Brother Inky said that the human came from the monkey.
Right. Now here's the fly thing. You can see where they trying to play games with the information. Because in the same breath, they would tell you that there was no humans here 25 million years ago.
That is true.
They would tell you that we came here a few thousand years ago, or that the first cavemen, so to speak, were here 200,000 years ago. So you got to see where the flaws come in. That shows that the information might be slightly, and this is how history gets tainted. They take a fact and distort it just a little bit, and when they distort it just a little bit, that's enough to throw most people off the trail for good, and then they build upon cracked foundations, and then you get completely flawed sciences, like saying that the European is a light-skinned African. The reason why also, because I noticed that they said that they used the rhesus monkey from India, right? Which was also interesting to do their biological studies. If you notice, India has the highest concentration of dark-skinned or brown or black people with straight hair.
Right.
They also have the most defects, genetic defects in their when they're born.
Yeah, you see some wild-looking motherfuckers coming.
That's because that's where the experiments took place. That's where the most of the genetic modifications were coming from.
Okay.
Also, you can also Google search. Well, you probably have to do a little bit more than Google search. But if you look at the Indian scriptures, they document tens of thousands of years of war between Africans and monkey men, and they say monkey men specifically. Okay,
Wow.
all you have to do is look in the Indian scripture.
The Indians?
The Europeans.
The Europeans.
They would tell you though that it's in their scriptures. They got tens of thousands of years of written history of wars between. Well, they kind of came before the cave people, and that's how they became cave people, because as a result of these wars, there was a nuclear fallout, and people had to retreat into caves and things like that, and so on and so forth. But I want to get off the subject. But they document tens of thousands of years of wars between Africans and monkey men, and now that history has become blurred. The only documents that you have is those Indian scriptures that document that. They call it myth now to throw you off of it. And the only remnant left of that's in hardcore science is biology with the Rh positive and Rh negative, because they can't get rid of certain things because they have to understand their phenotype. That's why it's dangerous for us to go into these hospitals, because these hospitals are not dealing with our phenotype. Okay? Like I said, when you're dealing with Europeans also, a lot of us tend to forget, because we talk about melanin so much, that we think that they don't have any melanin. If Europeans didn't have any melanin, they would be dead. All of their organs, every cell in their body requires melanin to function. So they have to have melanin inside their body for it to function.
So what's the percentage of the
It's a lower percentage, and like I said earlier, it's a different type of melanin. We have eumelanin, they have pheomelanin. Pheomelanin is a recessive type of melanin, and when you look at it under a microscope, it cracks. Okay, so that's another reference to cracker, right? But it cracks up when you look at their melanin under a microscope. But it's pheomelanin and eumelanin completely different. They have sulfat at the core of their melanin, which means that they have a completely different biological structure.
Okay.
A completely different biological structure. That's why the hair is different, the lifespan is different, everything is completely different. And that's why even with them eating healthy as possible, because they're in the spas, they're in the health food places, and they've been in there for years.
They run all day.
That's right. Now they run all. They doing everything to be healthy, right? and they doing everything to supply us with shit to keep us unhealthy. So even with the liquor, even with the weed, even with the crack, even with the cigarettes, even with the AIDS, the cancer, the heroin, all that shit, we still outlive their ass. So you have to ask yourself the next question, especially when you look at, for instance, look at the brother Polite with all those books he wrote. He has spent 20 years eating McDonald's, loading up on sugar, had diabetes and all that. You gotta ask yourself, look at Malcolm X, spent all that time dyeing his hair, eating pork and all that shit. What would our level of excellence be, right? Because Michael Jordan, look how he revolutionized, but look at all our greats. What would our level of excellence be had we practiced health from the womb to the tomb like they do, as hard and religious as they do? If we paid attention to our diets, that's right. And Superman is based on the science of the black body, because Superman was created by two Jewish guys in the middle of that whole German, that whole German thing, which wasn't really about Jewish people. It was about Africans. The Holocaust executed by the Germans started in North Africa. They was killing hundreds of thousands of people, and the brother Sinetta got the DVD down there. Black Holocaust.
They was killing Africans first.
And they perfected it on Africans, and the reason they wanted to deal with the Jewish people before they unrolled their plan globally to wipe all the Africans off the face of the planet is because they wanted to clear up anybody that could be confused and move into their thing. So they wanted to get the Semites. Semite is not descendants of Shem. Semites is people with half and half blood, half black blood, or a certain percentage. Semite, you're dealing with half and half, or percentage of black blood.
That's why Hitler wanted the blue eyes, the blonde hair.
That's right.
He wanted his own master race.
And that's why they dealt with percentages. If you got this parent and that parent, 1/4, 1/8, and all that kind of stuff. So they was dealing with purifying the blood, and they wanted to make sure that they got anybody that had white skin that had black blood. They wanted to get them out first, because they knew the black people would be easy, because we docile. We don't have any information. Without science, we don't go anywhere. Even right now, we still docile.
All right.
Okay. So, I don't know. So just to wrap it up, blood is a science that we have to get into, because blood is not even like how we taught in school, that you have the two parents, and one parent passes along a trait, another parent passes along a trait, and then whichever trait is dominant is the trait you have. That doesn't even apply when you're dealing with blood. Blood is not passed on that way. What you have in your body, when you have two parents with different types of blood, those both types of blood live in your body, and they compete for the rest of your life. You always have both. So if you have a parent and your dad say it's B, B negative, B positive, whatever the case may be, and your mom's is O negative, O positive, or A, B, whatever, you're gonna inherit both of those types of blood. Both types. It's not like you're gonna get the dominant, or you're gonna get both types of those bloods. Okay? And it's just a science that we have to further look into. But all of the science validates that we've been here. And then anybody that's in question about who was in possession of old blood type, whatever, it's simple. Our origins, they did the DNA testing already. Our origins go back much longer than theirs. So if the O is the original blood type, it must belong to the original people. And if we the original people, then we had the original blood, and that's the game closer.
With all this discussion of blood and blood types and history, I'd like the brother to tell me, because I would like to know, at what point in history did man know that there were different blood types in different people? And what type of technology did he have at that time to determine what the different blood types were? Do you know?
Absolutely. Okay. I got it written down in the house, but I can tell you this. It's in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's on the walls. They have the Ta Seti, the Ta Meri, they have them all written out. So you see, and I can show you the exact, I'll give it to the family, because I know people going to be in the YouTube world, they're going to be on me. But as a matter of fact, you know what? Let me go ahead and plug the brother. You can check out Dr. Ali Muhammad, because he did extensive review on the fact that the blood types were documented on the Egyptian hieroglyphs in the walls already. Wow. Okay? So you can look that brother up. But yeah, so you can type in Dr. Ali Muhammad and type in blood types, and it should pop up. But it's documented. They had the two different blacks They had the light skin, and then they had the European. And not only did they have the blood types documented, but their civilization, you couldn't, you know, their civilization was based around blood types to a greater or lesser extent. And that's why even still today, royalty is passed based on what?
Blood type.
Blood type.
Yeah, they have sex with their brothers and cousins.
That's right. And because they want to keep the blood type strong, and it's based on the O negative blood type. So when you deal with these people that's talking about basing their fortunes, like Queen of England and these people, whatever, on their blood type, you know, they basing their blood type, they basing their fortune on your ancestors still.
But what is the technology that they used to determine what the blood type was? That's the second part of the question. Like you're saying that
the same technology that we have now. They had needles. They had all of the same technology we have now. None of this stuff is new because it's all documented in the walls. It's all on the walls of Egypt. The test tubes, the laboratories, none of that's new. As a matter of fact, on the radio last night, Dr. Delbert Blair was going into how the school system was funded by the Rockefellers, and they were working in conjunction with a man named William Petrie. And he didn't touch on it last night, but from my research, I know William Petrie was the man who discovered the hidden laboratories in Egypt, okay? Up there that validates some of the histories that's documented in your Old Testament. And that's where they came with the whole science of a lot of the monatomic goals and a lot of the monatomic minerals that's making such a uproar in the scientific community today. William Flinders Petrie was his name, and you can look him up. His books are no longer in print, obviously. They took those off the shelf. But that's where they discovered the monatomic gold, the laboratories, all of that stuff. So it's all, we had everything that's available now and way more. Our science was much more advanced. Much more advanced. So nothing that's out here right now was not in existence before. All of this stuff right here, what they do is, and that's one of the things that the secret orders are for. So what they do is when they discover something, but they don't understand how to use it, they don't understand how to operate it. They operate, they do experiments in private. They research in private until they figure out the mechanism.
Way down here.
Until they figure out the mechanism to how to get it to work right. Once they get the method of how to work right, they reward that to the scientists that figured out how to get it to work right, and give him credit for discovering the whole thing. So when you're dealing with Alexander Volta, right? Take it back to, I believe it was like 1792 or something like that.
See, what you have to do is you have to understand that in context.
Thank you, brother.
Peace. You have to understand that in context,
so
right?
Do you agree with the brother?
No, you have to understand it in context, right? And in context, what is occurring in Euroscientific circles is that they are trying to establish a place of origin for modern man, okay? Because they can't establish a place of origin for modern man in Europe, right, or in Asia, they found the oldest bones of what they think is modern, quote-unquote, human beings in Africa, all right? So in finding the oldest human remains in Africa, they want to link themselves to that. They don't want to link themselves to Neanderthals, because Neanderthals are not modern humans. You understand? But when you look at the science, when you look at their genetic science, when you look at their hematological science, they tell you that there's like 2% of Europeans who retain Neanderthal blood, but no African, no living black person retains any Neanderthal blood, so we never had it. You understand? So that means that at some point in time, that means at some point in time, right, there was somebody from the continent of Africa, right, who did something to a Neanderthal, right, and caused a genetic shift. This is why you find 2% of Europeans with Neanderthal blood, but you don't find any
people from the African continent
So
with
you
any
disagree
Neanderthal
with
blood.
Sheikh Anta Diop's theory?
Well,
Absolutely.
Let me tell you, right?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you, Sheikh Anta Diop, right? As powerful as his information was and as learned and researched as he was, he's gone. So at the point where he stops, I have access to his research. I have access to his research as well as research that he may not have come across, which is recent research. You understand?
Right.
So when you apply the ancient and the modern to come up with a understanding, it gives you a better overview of what's actually occurring.
So is it true that if you have a drop of black blood, does that make you black?
That's politics. That's the politics of the racial divide in the United States of America. That actually doesn't exist anywhere outside of the borders of the United States of America. When you look at South America and the Caribbean, right? You clearly see you clearly see individuals with all types of racial mixtures, right? In Jamaica, for instance, they rounded up Irish people and transported them to Jamaica to be slaves, right? So you see some Jamaicans with red hair and freckles, and their Jamaican accent has a slight Irish brogue, right? So you know that they're mixed with Irish people, right? But they're all Jamaicans, okay? When you look at the Hispanic people, right, which is a linguistic term that refers to people who speak Spanish, you see all types of racial compositions, right? And you see in one family, you see light skin with straight hair, and you see brown with afros in the same family, same mother and father. In Puerto Rico, in Dominican Republic, right? They don't make an issue out of that until they come to the United States, right? Where the politics of race became economic. Racism in America had an economic base. Yes, you said that. Does one drop apply? Here's what we do, right? We tend to view ourselves separate and apart from the rest of the nature on the planet, right? When you look at other life forms on this planet and you see them changing colors, you see them like the octopus changes color at whim, okay, and texture. So when you see us and you see us change colors, we do as well. In the summertime, people change colors, okay? So now what you're talking about is a genetic adaptation that became a mutation that once it evolved, it stayed. All evolutionary changes, they stay. You either live with it or die off from it, right? Like the sickle cell trait, okay, which is an evolutionary adaptation to fight malaria in the areas where mosquitoes carrying malaria was infecting the people and killing the people. They evolved the sickling of a cell in their bodies to prevent them from getting malaria. Now, once they were transported out of those natural environments, that evolutionary adaptation never left them. So it turns, when you get two people with sickle cell trait and they interbreed, that produces sickle cell anemia. That is proof of evolution. You understand? And it then turns on its host because it still serves the same function, only it doesn't have the same enemy to fight. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. It becomes an autoimmune disease. You understand? But evolution is real. People who say they don't believe in evolution, they don't understand what belief is. Belief is something you apply to religion. Belief is not something you apply to science. You apply experimentation to science. You can't experiment with a belief. You understand? That's just an idea, a scientific theorem or a hypothesis. You can test it. But now when you look at the other life forms on the planet, right, and you see all of the breeds of dogs that they have today, you know that a Doberman Pinscher is a mixed dog. That's a mutt. If you don't clip the dog's ears and cut its tail, it doesn't look like that. Right. You have to physically alter that dog to make it look like the breed that they put on shows. You know that these little teeny weeny dogs that they have today, you didn't see those when you were growing up because they didn't exist. These are hybrids, okay? So you understand that people get mad at me when I point this out, but Puerto Ricans, that's a hybrid. They didn't exist 500 years ago. Blacks in America, a hybrid. We didn't exist 500 years ago. Prior to contact with the European and the transporting of our people to these shores, we did not exist in the form that we exist today. You understand? Where you have, and let me point this out, where you have brothers like Sarasu and Seti, okay? And the brothers light skin with light brown, he didn't exist 500 years ago. It's a hybrid, okay? So that comes from the intermixture of different groups, right? When you look at some of these brothers like Tiger Woods, he's a hybrid. You understand? His mother's from Thailand and his father's one of us. He's a hybrid. Barack Obama, he's a hybrid. His father's from Kenya and his mother's a European American from Kansas or Nebraska somewhere, right? So now we know and understand that prior to the contact of foreign individuals, that these people did not exist. So when we look and we say, well, how you gonna say there's new people? There's new people all the time. All the time. So when you look at in ancient times, when you look at the emergence of what we know today as Europeans, we know that there was no Europe. During the time of the Roman Empire, there was no Europe. There was Gaul. You understand? There was a Britain.
Roaming nomadic tribe.
There was a Britain, but that was a Roman Britain. You had different tribes going in there and killing each other up, and then interbreeding. You had the Angles and the Saxons, and a Saxon, by the way, is not the name of a people. A Saxon is a knife that those particular Germans carried, and they began to be known by what they did, like the Vandals. And vandalism, the wanton destruction of property, is the name of a people. But because of what they did, that's how they're known to history. Okay? So
Yo, watch the tape.
when you look at the evolution of things like ideas and names and people as well, you get different mixtures and different admixtures. Or when you look at this brother right here who stopped and he's interested. Where you from, brother?
Dominican Republic.
Huh?
Dominican Republic.
Okay, the brother's from the Dominican Republic. Let me ask you a question. What does Dominican mean?
What does it mean? Oh, I don't know.
Dominique.
Okay.
A European name. Right?
Okay.
Just like Puerto Rico. What does the word Puerto Rico mean?
Yeah, Puerto Rico. That I know.
Now,
it was a port because it was a major.
Could there, understanding what those words mean, can there be any such thing as a Puerto Rican?
No.
You understand?
Yeah.
These are Europeans, they came, they conquered, and what they were actually saying, they were giving other Europeans directions. When you reach this spot, Puerto Rico, the gateway to the riches, because they were coming to steal, plunder, pillage, rape, and return. That was their intention. They never had any intentions of settling. That's why the lowest of their low-class people got on those ships. The people who were settled and established, they never left. This is why you still see them in Europe today. You still see the royalty, the aristocracy, the landed individuals. They still got property in Europe. This is why you have individuals who can trace their history.
While you on that subject, let me just address this, because this shit is going down in the Bronx, and I know if it's going down in the Bronx, I know it's going down in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Dominicans and Africans seem to be at war right now.
That is true.
Now, this is asinine and ass backwards, and this is white supremacy all over. I mean, it's just signature down to the dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's, okay? When they colonized, okay? When they colonized, okay? When they split that island down the middle, because Haitians and Dominicans be going at it too like they don't know they're the same people.
All day, yeah.
When they colonized that island, okay, the white people that colonized that island split it down the middle. Prior to that colonization, everybody on that island identified themselves together. Period. We're not going to get into the name so that people can say, no, they didn't. They used that name in 1400. No. they identified as one people. When they broke that up, they split the booty, right? When they split the booty down the middle, the Spanish people and the French came to their own agreement and said, listen, you can have half the island, I'll take the other half of the island. Boom, they made their little treaty, their little deal, and that was the end of that. That's why the people on the Spanish side that were colonized by Spain speak Spanish, and the people on the other side of the little tiny river, because it's just a little river over there, and the shit is dry now, so there's no difference between, you can't even find out the difference between Haiti and DR right now.
This square block is bigger than the border.
That's right, just like that. So the other side that was colonized by France, now they call themselves Haitian. It's crazy. It's the same people all over, and we got to get past those little titles, because those little titles keep us divided.
Hold up. Do you agree with what he was saying?
Oh yeah, I fully agree about what he said.
Okay.
Let me give you.
And we're killing each other behind that shit. We're killing each other behind that
Let me give you a little insight into the reason why, right? And I'm going to use other people as well to establish the validity of what I'm about to say, right? The Spaniards and the French were enemies.
That's right.
They were fighting over the same spoils. Okay? I'm gonna steal here. What? You can't steal here. I'm stealing here. Right? So they were fighting, the Spanish and the French. Right? This happened elsewhere. Right here, you had the French and the English were fighting. They were enemies. Now, you had certain native tribes line up with the English, and certain native tribes line up with the French. Once the French and the English made a treaty, the native tribes kept fighting. They didn't make a treaty. You understand? Now, in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, what you have and what you still have, just like in Nigeria, you have people who have Spanish ideologies or Spanish mindset, and people who have French ideologies or French mindset. And remember, the Spanish and the French were enemies. So this is where the conflict comes from. When you look at Jos in Nigeria, and you look at the Christians, you from Jos? And you look at, peace brother, and you look at the conflict that's occurring between Christians and Muslims, right? These are the same people, only some have Arab, Muslim mindsets and ideologies, and some have European Christian mindsets and ideologies. And you know that Arab, Muslims, and European Christians were fighting for 199 years, so they're enemies. To this day, this causes conflict among our people because they adopt these. Once you adopt their beliefs, you adopt their mindset.
Well, let me expound on that. No, let me expound on that. And the reason is self-hate. Self-hate, because if we didn't hate ourselves, if we didn't hate the image that we see when we look in the mirror, we wouldn't be so thirsty to grab something else and hold that as our own. You see? So we want to be calling ourselves, I know Spanish cats darker than me that go apply for a job and check off Caucasian. You know, we want to be something other than what we are because we don't see the greatness in ourselves. So if we can't take off that title and call ourselves French because we speak French language, because French, Spanish, all those things are languages. Those are not people, okay? Just because you speak Spanish doesn't make you Spanish. Just because you speak French doesn't make you Spanish.
Well,
just because you speak Hebrew doesn't make you a Jew.
Are you Dominican or are you African or what?
Well, it makes sense what he says, that it's a language. It's handed down, and you can't name yourself after a language.
So who are you?
I have different descents. I know on my father's side, we mix with the African side. My father's, his complexion, and then my mom's is mixed with the Spain side. And my mom's is white complexion.
Okay.
But I quite understand that when they came over, they slaved the Indians. The Indians, we were dying off. And so the African slaves came in, and there was just a big mix there. So I know that I have African in me. I definitely know that.
Now let me put something else in the ethers for the family watching on in virtual world. When they say Indian, understand that they're talking about black people. Okay. When you have the red Indians, when the red Indians got over here, they came through Alaska and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. Those were people from Genghis Khan, and those were kind of Oriental people, the red skin that came here. There were already black people here. And if you look in India right now, those people are brown and black. So when the Spanish people and the English people got off the boat, the thing that confused them and made them think that this was India is because they seen a bunch of black and brown motherfuckers running around. So when you see that term Indian thrown around loosely, you got to understand that within the confusion of the annals of history, they're mixing two separate brown and black peoples up with the red people that was totally different. They got treated the same way in the long run because they were not European.
Well, let me hold on. Come on, K.
One statement on that.
Yeah.
During that time, there was no such thing as the word India. It was called the deacon. It was called the deacon. When they came to America, to the Americans, and they saw those peoples, they said Indian, they were saying Indios,
That's
God's
right, Indio.
people.
Yeah.
They was calling them God's people.
That's right.
So they wasn't going after the term of India, because during that time, India was called the deacon. D-E-C-C-A-N. You know what I mean? So we have to clear that part up. Because when they first noticed those guys, like you said, the blacks and the browns running around on them shores, and then noticing the way they lived and how conducive they was to foreigners, they said these are God's people, Indios. That's what the Spanish called them. Because there was no word for India, it was called the deacon.
But I just want to clear up the complexion of the skin, because we get confused and we think that they talking about red people and it's not us.
All right, go ahead.
Not to differ with you.
You're about to, and you're gonna be wrong.
Yeah, I'm about to.
You're about to be wrong.
Well, come back.
I got a customer.
Okay.
Get me back though.
Because you know I'm about to clarify something, right? First of all, the term Indian and India comes from the Romans, right? They had no H, right? So Indian is actually the people who still live and inhabit the region of India right now today. The place that's known as India, those would be the Hindus, right? Their language is called Hindi, right? Now, they had a beef with the individuals who got Arabized over there, who are now called Paki. And their state, wait a minute, their state is Pakistan, right? Which is a piece of India that broke off in 1948 when they had a beef and they killed Mahatma Gandhi, who was a Hindu, right? Now, the term India, right? Europeans mistakenly, remember the British conquered this area and colonized it, right? So the place became known as India to the world, courtesy.
25 years.
No, wait a minute.
Hey, go Kim Netta.
Before we get, hold on. Because before we get into jockeying for position on a point that's irrelevant.
Right, okay.
The term is that, the point is this. When the Europeans got here, the people that they seen on the shores here, because they documented it, you can look in Columbus's diary.
Yeah, Columbus said he's seen people that look like us.
That's right. That's the whole point. So before we get deep into,
I don't disagree with that.
Right. That's the main point, and we all in agreement on that. All three of us.
But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, and this is why this is a critical point, and it's not.
No, I know where you're going.
No,
I know where you're going.
Because they weren't saying these are God's people, Indios, right? No. See, that doesn't make sense. That only makes sense when you're trying to understand Spanish as an English-speaking person, right? And you know that Dios is Spanish for God, right? The Columbus was on his way. Just like you go, these little shops, they go to Chinatown to buy cheap stuff and bring it back and put it in retail stores because the Chinese make a whole bunch of stuff cheap, right? Columbus was on the same mission, right? The reason we know Columbus was on the same mission, right, is because the Chinese were manufacturing cheap goods for a long time, right? So now, the reason why, look at this, the reason why Columbus took to the water was because, remember, the European Christians and the Arab Muslims were fighting
for a long time. So he was trying to go around those Muslims who was hijacking Christians and selling them as slaves. So he took to the water. The reason why he had a hard time getting investors, right, was because ain't nobody want to lose their money. The only reason Isabella and Ferdinand financed them is because they were fighting the Moors. You understand? So there's an interconnection. There's an interconnection with the history here, right? So that when Columbus landed, he only knew about certain places. He knew about Africa, he knew about Europe, and he knew about Asia, or the East Indies as they called it, right? So when he landed here, going west, he thought he was in the West Indies. So they call the people Indians. That's where it come from. It don't come from Indios because they were such good people, and because you had Caribs over here that was eating other natives. You understand? That's where the word cannibal come from the Carib Indians in the Caribbean. They gave their name to it because white people used to disappear up in there. They was cooking them. That's real. There's no bullshit.
Okay.
There wasn't no damn gods, people. That's crazy.
All right, what else you want to touch on, man?
I told you, I came out here just to throw a hook and a jab at this dude in Washington, D.C. talking about we black because we in darkness and we don't know our history, but he running around YouTube calling himself nigga like a fucking idiot. You understand? He gonna tell me that I don't know anything about him. I know about you because you posted about you. So I know exactly what you told the whole world. That you a nigga and that you not black, that your name means something, and that you trying to pull a fast one on Brother Larry. But Brother Larry's about to post a video explaining in detail your stupidity. Cause Atticus, in the words of, what's my man name? You know, the white guy, man, at the fights. Let's get ready to rumble!
Who that, Jabari? Who that?
Yeah, this white dude that do the fights, man. Damn, okay. Atticus, that's the message for you. Let's get ready to rumble!
Now it's time for the main event. Yes, what you've all been waiting for. Brother Natural Tahuti, the bad boy of consciousness, and Minister Inky. The battle of truth is now. Is the white man a light-skinned African? You make the call. Sit back, relax, family, and we're gonna bring it to you live. We also gonna be dealing with, in this science, the albino, the genes of the albino, and of course the Neanderthal man. Where did the Neanderthal man come from? Brother Natural Tahuti said he come out of the gene of the black man, but Minister Inky disputes that claim, and Minister Inky will show and prove his proof as Natural Tahuti will try to do the same thing and demonstrate his proof. Minister Inky said he comes from the recessive monkey. Is he right, family? Without any further ado, I bring to you the Battle of Wills.
All of us are in a degenerative state. And the longer we live on this planet, we degenerate. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's so necessary about the procreation. That's what's so necessary about us continuing to procreate and procreate and procreate, because we are all degenerating in a state. I just found out recently that black men, after their age, when they get in their 40s, they produce more estrogen in their body.
But Tahuti, I want you to go into proving that the white man. All right,
these terms, this is relative. Everything I'm saying is relative. I just found out, and this goes with the case, back to the fact that the woman is the original human being. I found out that men, when they get into their 40s, they produce more estrogen in their body. And so as a result, they begin to experience what is called erectile dysfunction. And that's why the doctors are making all of these drugs to keep men virile. You see what I'm saying? So that they can perform in the bedroom, or not even perform in the bedroom, but to feel more relevant and feel more like a man, because they're losing testosterone as they get up in age. And so they come back and they start producing more estrogen. You see, they start getting flabbier chests, they get more fatter, stuff like that. So I mean, the point the science is showing if they're going back, if they producing more estrogen, and estrogen is a female trait, it would only go to show us that the female was the origin in the beginning.
All right,
you see what I'm saying? Now I'm going to the white man.
Come on, man.
The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that the white man is the devil. And he said that in a black man's body there exist two germs, a brown germ and a black germ. He said this scientist by the name of Yakub separated the brown germ from the black germ by destroying the black germ. He said after following this process for 600 years, the germ became weak and wicked. It was no longer the same. Also, by thinning the original blood, it was no longer the same. Thus, this is how the white man came about. Now, I understand the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I think what Elijah did back then was basic psychology. But when you read Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's, and this goes for everybody that is doing studying, what you got to do is when you go to the back of the book, you'll look and you'll see, damn, where the fuck is his references at? There are none. The only references here are the Holy Bible, the Quran, and Master Farad Muhammad. Those are the only references that he gives you. So therefore, you have to take his word for it. So, in order to take his word for it, what that makes you is a follower. It does not make you a person who begins to think outside the box. So if you begin to think outside the box, all of a sudden you become ostracized. Now, the point of the matter is, I said that white folks are light-skinned Africans. Let's just go with what Elijah Muhammad said. He said that they were grafted from the original man. If they were grafted from the original man, the point in case is that they were grafted from the original man. So that would mean that whatever was inside the original man was taken out of the original man, thus propagated to become another form of the same type of man. Let's understand that human beings belong to one species. That species is called man. Man does not mean male. Man means the species. We belong to a species called man. So now you got the black man, you got the brown man, you got a red man, you got a yellow man, and you also got the white man. But we all belong to that original man, which was the African. So this is not nationality. This is not nationality. Nationality is your national geographics, is your national origin. Your ancestry originates, but humanity, the different shades of humanity, black, brown, yellow, red, and white, all belong to the African. Therefore, if the original black man is the original human being, therefore it stands to show that all people are Africans in their basic core elements.
Following that line of information, have you done any of the are you familiar with the research done on because I know you go heavy into the woman being God and that and are you familiar with this information?
Yes, sir. And okay. I brought it along with me today.
So let's go into your information on the DNA haplogroups.
Well, they talk about the OOA, which is the second out of Africa migration event. The first human migration was Africans that migrated, and they migrated inland toward Australia, because they happen to be the second group of oldest human beings on the planet, the Australians. You would agree? Now, they migrated on
I think that's a loose term. And before I let you go with the loose term, I want to be specific. The original inhabitants of Australia, that's the second oldest group of people on the planet, are the Aborigines, which are also black people, dark-skinned people.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, cool.
I'm talking about.
But Australia's got a lot of Europeans.
Oh no, no, of course we know that. We know that. But I'm talking about the original inhabitants that are there. What do you call them again?
Aborigines.
The Aborigines. Okay. So and they had straight hair and mongoloid features. You see, Professor Sheikh Anta Diop says there are two kinds of African. He said there's the broad African and there's the alpine African. He said the African that is broad has broad noses. He has the obvious prognathism, which means the lower jawbone protruding from the face. Now, all Africans have that, even those with the alpine features, except for those with the alpine feature, they have a sharper jawbone. And they have the alpine nose. Now, the case of the matter is the alpine nose is from these phenotypes are cultural traits. Cultural traits are something that develop over a period of thousands of years. For the European, it developed over a period of 20,000 years from them being in the ice. The alpine nose feature is because it was for the warming of the air in the nose. Okay. You understand what I'm saying to you? Just because they were in ice does not mean that would make them white. Because if that was the case, then what about the Africans that live up in Antarctica and the Eskimos up in the North Pole? They've been there for thousands of years and they have not turned white. They are still very black. The fact of the matter is...
Wait. Before you go past that, I want you to note that right there, that is a fact in and of itself that completely exposes that whole theory of people migrating out of Africa into colder climates and losing their pigment.
No, all that does is excludes natural selection theory.
Well, no. If that was the case, if people migrated out of Africa and because they were in colder climates, they lost their pigment, that would still be happening today, and we don't see that.
Right. So that makes the argument mute about natural selection, but it does not make the whole argument mute about them moving to a colder climate, because the fact of the matter is this, and it still is going on. It still goes on today. 1 out of every 4,000 Africans born is an albino.
All right, now get back to the science.
That's what we're getting into. 1 out of every 4,000 Africans born are albinos, and you can do the research on that.
You know there are marked distinctions between albinos and Europeans. Because a lot of times we throw that out there like albinos and Europeans are the same. There are marked distinctions genetically between albinos and Europeans. And there's a marked distinction between the type of melanin that's possessed in black people as well as Europeans, because Europeans are also melanated. Okay, if they didn't have any melanin in their body, they wouldn't be able to survive. But there's 2 different types of melanin. There's eumelanin, there's pheomelanin.
Okay.
And when you're dealing with similar species, they will share similar traits. But you know that species are different. Like you wouldn't confuse a shark with a whale just because they both swim in the sea.
2 different species.
Same thing with Europeans and black folks.
I beg to differ. Every one of us are Homo sapiens sapiens. That would make us all members of the same species, man.
No.
The name of this species. Okay, what's the different species in man?
Hold on. Listen, I'm gonna tell you.
Human beings, and I have to go back to my brother Taj Tariq Bey. Human beings are not crayons.
Hold on. We're not dealing with crayons. We're dealing with biology. What determines a species? What distinguishes one species from another?
Genetics.
Okay, so if we're genetically different, then that would make us different species.
The only thing genetically different about the white man, he has relatively the same chromosomes, the same X chromosome, Y chromosomes that we have. The only markedly different that they have, that are different from us, is that their genes are in a degenerative form. No. Because they lack melanin.
No, that's not true. They don't lack melanin. They only lack skin melanin. This is what I'm trying to tell you. All of their organs and cells on the inside are melanated. They have to have melanin in order for them to function. So they have melanin. They don't have that's been something that we've been misunderstanding. They have melanin. If they didn't have melanin in their cells, they wouldn't be able to function. Now, this is why they have a high rate of birth defects. They have a lot of higher rate of infant mortality. They have a lot higher rate of just defects in general, and a lot harder time reproducing, is because the type of melanin they have is completely different, because they are completely different species. At the core of each one of our melanin molecules, you have selenium. At the core of their melanin molecules, you have sulfur. Okay, that would make us completely different genetically. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Africa has laid out a ton of differences, but I don't even have his material.
Yeah, but I beg to differ. What I'm saying is that although that research there is factual, and I'm not arguing that, what I am arguing that is that because we have the differences, that these differences are a 20,000-year-old difference because of the fact they have degenerated to where they are today. Originally, they were Africans, and the fact of the matter is the word albino in language literally means white. If you take an albino skin, put it under a microscope, and you put a European skin under the microscope, you would not see any differences. They are generally the same. Now, you have two kinds of albinos. You have one with the TRXY positive gene, and then you have the one with the TRXY negative gene.
Okay, but
come on,
but
man.
Listen, he has yet to he's just agreed with me on the genetic differences.
Right.
And he agreed prior to that genetics, differences in genetics is how you determine two different species. So
No.
if you agree that species are differentiated by genetics, and then you agree also that we have separate genetics, then you have to agree 2 + 2 = 4, that since species are determined by genetics and we have different genetics, that we would be a different species.
Yeah, but these are all, first and foremost, we have to understand when we're talking about human beings, all language is generic. We are saying the best possible thing to try to describe a thing. But when it comes down to the basic human components, we are all the same. If you cut a white man, his ass will bleed, and if you cut a black man, his ass will bleed.
Right. Now hold on.
First of all,
wait a minute. Because wait, if you cut a fish or if you cut a giraffe, it will also bleed. So now that don't mean that we're the same species.
But that's my point. I'm trying to get the point to you that the human being is such a remarkable being because the human being is made up of all of the different animals on the planet. That's the whole mythology about Adam knowing the name of all of the animals. Because when you look at the
That's not real though.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm gonna prove it. In a mother's womb,
Adam is not.
No. I'm just using. No, Adam is just a. It's a metaphor.
Okay.
We're using that as a metaphor. We know there was no person called Adam, but we know that there are Adams.
You using that as a metaphor right now, because I disagree.
Okay, we are Adamites because we all come from Adams.
Well, let me ask you this, brother Tahuti.
Okay, I can agree with that.
Okay.
Larry, Professor Larry said that you was a
terminology.
hybrid. He was saying brothers of that light-skinned complexion such
That
as
ain't
you.
true.
So I'm saying to you, are you a hybrid?
No, he's
Is Professor
wrong.
Larry right when he said that you was not here 5,000 years ago?
Now, hold on,
Absolutely wrong, because you have the Khoi tribe, which are so-called pygmies, and they got blonde goddamn hair. They got blonde hair, and some of them are very light-skinned, and they have no
Who are you
admixture.
talking about?
The Khoi.
Okay, but how old is they?
They're the oldest people on the planet.
Wow, get the fuck out of here.
They are the
And they was
oldest people.
light-skinned, you say?
Some of them are light-skinned, some of them are dark-skinned, and some of them have blonde hair.
Right.
Check it out.
But
Wait a minute.
now, hold on. Let me
just
address
say
that
this
real
point.
quick. Let me address
They
that
don't
real quick.
have
So
no
that shooting,
admixture
that right
of
there
blood.
knocks Larry shit out of the box.
But they don't have no mixture of blood.
Well, look, this is what I want to do with that, though. Because you can't stick me and Tahuti in the hot box and then try to vicariously mix Larry in. Larry ain't in the backseat. Larry got to be here to deal with Larry information. Now, when you deal with the Khoi tribe, because like somebody posted on YouTube, Minister Inky, what about the Africans that have straight hair? That goes back into when we were discussing albinoism. Albinoism not only happens full blown, it happens in very varying degrees. So you may have something that you don't notice. You may be darker than me all over your body and still be very small. A very small percentage of you may be albino. You may have, and this is what they call when people have, and again, it doesn't happen typically in our community, but in the European community, it's much more prevalent. When people are born and they have type 1 diabetes, for instance. Let's deal with diabetes. The reason that type 1 diabetes is primarily European or Caucasian problem is because they lack melanin in their pancreas. They have pancreatic failure due to not having a sufficient amount of melanin in their pancreas for it to function. So the organ fails. Okay, that right there is a type of albinoism. Okay, the reason that we have type 2 diabetes is real high in our community, it has nothing to do with your pancreas failing. Your pancreas is working fine. Your pancreas is producing sufficient insulin. But what's happening is we're eating so much garbage. We're eating so much animal fat. And for the family that doesn't understand, animal fat eats insulin. Animal fat eats insulin. And when you eat animal fat, it stays in your bloodstream for about 4 or 5 hours. So the animal fat sucks all the insulin out of your blood, and it's the insulin that burns up the blood sugar. And the insulin that your pancreas produces can't feed the animal fat and burn the blood sugar. So what I'm saying is, before we get too deep into diabetes, diabetes type 2 has nothing to do with organ failure. It has to do with diet. Diabetes type 1 is about organ failure, and organ failure is about sometimes, not every time, but it's about a lack of melanin for the organ to function properly. Any organ or cell that doesn't have proper melanin will not be able to function properly. So when we deal with the Khoi tribe and tribes of black people that produced, one or two people here and there that may have blonde traits, or they may have green eyes, or they may have this, that, and the other, those are recessive traits that do pop up from time to time. And the reason that we're living on the planet and we are in a state of degeneracy right now is because we're living out of tune with nature. You see, the moment that we go back in tune with nature, we will not degenerate. Okay, we will actually, the moment that we go back in tune with nature, we won't degenerate. The problem is we living out of tune with nature, so we are degenerating, and we can't live out of tune with something that we're inside of. That would be like a cell. See, what we're doing right now is we're living like cancer cells inside of a body. Right? We're inside the body, but we're trying to live outside the confines, or outside what is good for that body. So what we do here now, most of us, we live outside the confines of nature, although we are in nature. No matter how far away we like to remove our minds from that fact, we still live within nature. No matter what kind of concrete we put around, we still live in nature. So when we live back in tune with nature and back in tune with the universal and cosmic laws, we won't degenerate.
I would definitely agree with that, you know. But I just think that we need to grow up, because we're now in the information age, and the white man is the devil was very good at the time when we were getting that information, because look what it was necessary. It was necessary.
Now that I agree with. And I don't want people to think that you know, with the science and all that, I'm trying to give you a new scientific way to crutch and lean up on that whole white man is the devil thing. We're not doing that. Only reason I point that out genetically is so that we can see this is why we're being so heavily researched, and why they're not researching themselves. Like, if the white man was truly a degenerate black man, they wouldn't need our blood. They wouldn't. For instance, we look at Henrietta Lacks.
Oh, they're not true. They are researching themselves now. The evidence just came up over in, I think it's South Africa, and in Central Africa. They are killing albinos and selling the body parts. Now, obviously, they're not selling them to black people because they don't got no goddamn money.
Well, they're not
Follow
selling
the money trail.
No. They're not selling any body parts to any black people, because black people don't have the money to buy body parts.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're selling to white researchers that are researching the albinism.
Right, but what
they're trying to find out. They're learning about their origins.
Cutting the brother off. Let him go in. He want to go in now. He gonna take it up to another lot.
Okay.
Nah, this is the bad boy of consciousness, brother. Natural Tahuti, man.
Okay.
Going deep into the research.
Listen, what I'm saying is this. Like I said earlier, even when you deal with an albino, it's not the same as a European. It's a completely different species. It's still different.
You're getting it wrong about species.
No.
All human beings belong to the same species.
Listen, that's like, hold on. You know
all
what?
Right, let me prove it.
Hold on.
All right, wait a minute.
Listen.
No. You've been talking.
In the animal kingdom.
You've been talking. Right,
in the animal kingdom.
Let's deal with cats.
Right, let's deal with cats. In the animal kingdom, if there's an albino leopard, right? Does that make it anything other than a leopard because it's an albino?
No.
So an albino black man is still a black man. He just has a problem with producing skin pigment.
So that's the same. They got birds that are albinos. You got birds that are albino. There are a lot of different animals that are albinos.
I agree. An albino pigeon doesn't make it an eagle. It's still a pigeon.
Yeah, but check. Right. So that means that the pigeon is still a pigeon. It's not a different species.
Right.
The same with the white man. He's just an albino African that mutated in the ice.
He's not an albino African, and that's our whole
So
point.
Where did the white man come from then?
The rhesus monkey.
I disagree with that shit.
You can't, because the blood types, you can look up rhesus monkey and see what it says there. The blood types, it's there. Anybody that has ever gotten their blood taken, or anybody that will get their blood taken.
Why aren't there still evolving white monkeys today?
Because they didn't evolve naturally. They were evolved in the laboratory.
Oh, so now we're going with this laboratory thing.
Yes, that's proven though.
Now, no, that's not proven. Again, that's why I brought this. There are no references.
But my information doesn't come out of there.
Let me speak. These people that say that the white man was made in a laboratory, I think that's ludicrous, because first and foremost, where is the paleontological evidence? Where is the archaeological evidence?
I can tell you
Where
right
is
now.
the anthropological evidence?
I can tell you
Show
right now.
me, like the Missouri state. Show me the money, homie.
All right, well,
that's what I want to see.
I can tell you. As a matter of fact, you got internet on this? Let's pull it up and go into it.
We don't got no internet out here.
As a matter of fact, I do.
But no, I got something that I want to show.
I could go to the internet and pull it up, because this is the reason why when you deal with the theory of evolution, there's groups between the cavemen. Okay, that's number one. The difference between the groups of the cavemen, and reason why they can't find the evolution between the monkey and the first caveman. Then there's he went extinct. Then there's another caveman, and they can't find how they phased into one another, is because they did not.
All right, if that's the case,
hold on.
If that's the case, then all of us come from monkeys. Because
no, we don't all come from monkeys.
First of all, monkeys
that's why
don't
there's
talk.
RH positive blood and RH negative blood, because that denotes two separate species.
No, listen. First of all, the only people that speak with these languages are human beings.
Now hold on, let's go into that.
So
hold on,
what you're saying is the white man is not a human being.
Now, no, he's not a human being, because
so
hold on. Let me address those 2 points at the same time, because you got me on two places now. Listen, when you deal with human, right? Man is a word. Hue is prefixed onto that word, or it's a compound word, however you want to deal with it.
Means shade.
That's right. Now, so when you deal with colored man, you're dealing with color, that's pigment. That would be melanin. Okay?
White people have melanin
on the inside, but they lack it on the skin.
They still got it though.
But
the point of the matter is that they have it.
No.
You can't live without melanin.
Right. And I just stated that.
Therefore, white people are mutated Africans who lack melanin at the epidermis level, and they also their melanin
outside of hue. That's why they refer to themselves as mankind. That's number one. So on the language thing, they didn't possess ASPM genes prior, before 10,000 years ago. So before 10,000 years ago, no, they did not even possess the ability to speak, because ASPM genes are what allows one to articulate themselves.
Here's the point of the matter. You can't be a researcher and an activist. It's either or, one or the other. The people who are out here speaking on it, such as Minister Inky, i.e. Natural Tahuti, we are the activists. We're the ones speaking on it. But we are not the actual geneticists that go and do this research. So we are basically confined in a box. We have to go with the best research that agrees with our point. So he goes with the best research that agrees with his point. I go with the best research that goes with my point, because number one, we are not doing the field research ourselves. In order to do that, you have to show a survey. You have to show how many human beings that you have done this survey on. Now, the research says that there's the haploid group R, the Y DNA, right? It says in human genetics, haploid group R is a Y chromosome DNA haploid group subgroup of haploid group P defined by M207 mutation. This is talking about the Dravidian branch of humanity, because in the Dravidians you have those human beings with the alpine features. They also have albinos, and when you look at these groups, you can clearly see the albino Dravidian with the straight hair looks just like the same European that you have now. What I brought here today to show y'all is a comparison, to show you that all human beings are really Africans. Now, I'm saying that term is relative to all human beings because all human beings derive from the African. And if they all come from the African, it would go to show that this so-called term race is a misnomer. There is no such thing as race. That term was coined by white supremacists.
I agree.
The word race.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not.
Okay, let me finish.
I just asked you that, brother.
Let me finish. The term race has nothing to do with human beings. The term race means competition. Now we are termed racist and we are in a competition. And the lighter you are, that means the more up the ladder of the race you're winning. The darker you are, that means that you're losing the race. So race means competition. It has nothing to do with genetics. It has nothing to do with human beings.
That's right.
That term is generic. The term is a misnomer. Number one, let's look right here. These are Africans. Right there.
Bring it out, Tahuti. Bring out the info.
These
man.
are Dravidians. Now, you can see some of them have broad features, but they still have straight hair. But they are Africans. Okay? You cannot say that they're not Africans. Number one, I want to quote Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh, the entertainer. If you are a black man, you are an African. Number one. So, now let's go down. Let's look at these Africans.
Peter Tosh is not an entertainer.
Yes, he is. That used to be Bob Marley's homie.
Right, but he. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
Look at these Africans with the almond eyes. It goes to show you where the Chinaman came from. The Chinaman is a degenerate African. Sarah Sutin said that they did not come from us, that they came from the Dravidians. No, he didn't even say Dravidians. He said the Hindus. Now, the fact of the matter is, yes, Hindus do have albinos, and I am just saying that they can give birth to to albinos with the straight alpine features. But there was a recent case, and I didn't bring the picture with me today, of a black woman and a black man in South Africa who gave birth to albino children, and all of them had straight hair. And these people don't have straight hair. They got the broad features. They got wide noses, big lips, and they got nappy hair. These nappy head, broad nose, big lips Africans gave birth to albinos with straight hair and straight noses. Now, again, look at these Africans again, and you can see the degeneration. I'm just going to show you. You see the degeneration, and you see they have the almond eyes. You see they also have. What is famous about the African is the prognathism. That means that the lower jawbone protrudes from the face. You can see that they are Africans. You understand? But you can see where the Chinaman came from. He degenerated from this group of Africans. They're not another species of Africans. They're just different, what do you call, stock. This is an African. That's a black man. First and foremost, with straight hair.
Right.
He's a black man. He has all of the genetics of black folks. He has the melanated skin. Is he not a black man?
Well, I just explained that you can have.
Now look. Look at these. Albinos. These are albinos from these people. They came from this group of Africans. Now look at them. You see? You can still see some of the broad features. But look at the hair, it's straight. You see what I mean? Now, okay, yes, all of these people in their healthy state are all black-skinned. Just like the black Dravidians above. In their healthy state. Because albinism is a disease. It's a mutated gene. Okay, let's go here. Now look at these Africans. They're light-skinned Africans. That's who they are. Hold on.
All right.
Okay.
Can I get you to read something?
Hold on.
Can I get you to read something? Because
there she goes. There she goes. Look at this African woman. Her and her husband are both African. Look at their children.
Wow.
Straight fucking hair. And she's not a Dravidian.
Now, can you not see something different between her skin texture?
Wait. Black mother.
Right there.
Look at this one. Look at this one, all of the black children, and look at that white baby with the straight hair.
And that's their baby right there.
With the straight hair.
And that's their baby.
That's their baby. That's their baby. Okay?
Told you, man. Yo, when you come with your shit, you better come, man.
Stop.
Oh, they don't stop.
No, because you're doing too much. Come on, you're not moderating. This is borderline riding right now. We riding right now. We riding. Okay. Because we're not addressing no facts. And what he said earlier about...
the Chinaman? The Chinaman, he came from the African. Check him out. Check him out. Wait a minute.
Tahootie going in right now.
Wait, look at him.
Oh,
these
my
are
goodness.
black.
Tahootie showing pictures. Tahootie not addressing science.
Right.
Wait, these are. I'm not going to do that at the moment. What I'm doing right now is just showing you.
Yeah.
We are addressing science. This is part of it.
No, we are showing pictures.
I'm getting ready to come to you. Relax.
All right.
Just get your facts ready.
Now,
I don't have that much.
Look at
it's
these.
very simple.
Look at these dark-skinned Chinese people. These are Africans.
Look at that shit.
They're Africans. Okay. Look at them. Take a look at them with the braids. They're darks. These are Africans. Broad noses. You see what I mean?
All you're doing is demonstrating that the first two dynasties of China were black.
No. Look at these.
He's starting to show you the migration now.
Now you see the difference in them?
Right.
But they're light-skinned Africans. They're light-skinned from that particular branch of humanity.
All right, you know what? I want to go on over to Inky before he explodes.
One last point.
Just by showing this
look
right
at,
here.
Look at this Chinese albino.
Look at that shit.
That's an albino.
You demonstrating this right here, Tahootie. You are the bad boy of consciousness, and you show facts, proof, and evidence.
No, he didn't.
Now,
he showed pictures.
I want to come on over to Minister Inky and see what Brother Inky got for me.
Now, listen. What he did was show pictures. That's not proof. Okay? What you did was show pictures. Now,
that is still proof.
No, it's not.
Yes,
because that's not explaining the biology that's taking place. Now, what's happening is this. He's showing pictures of successive generations of people that looks, when you just look at the pictures, like they are devolving and losing pigment, so on and so forth. What you're not seeing is invasions, colonizations, and mixing of blood, so that people are mixing one group with another, producing different types of offspring.
That's not true.
That's fact. You can look in the Indian scriptures where they document this type of genetic and bloodline mixing, and this is the problem that we're dealing with. And when you talk about the Europeans created the term race, yes, they created the term in its popular usage, which clearly sticks to skin pigment when they deal with bloodlines. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, that you have to deal with bloodlines and you have to deal with DNA. If you read this research right here, you can read it yourself, okay? It's not shiny pictures, but it takes you down and it goes right in here. And if you want to skip through, no, I would prefer Tahootie to read it.
No, it's your research.
It's your research.
But see, that's what we're saying. See, and that's another thing I want to address real quick before I read this. Earlier, he said that as activists, we don't do the research. We look for research that sticks with our point. No, if we are going to be activists in its proper form or teachers in its proper form, then we look for facts and we teach the facts. We don't look for information that supports our point. We look for facts.
That's mute.
And teach the facts.
No, that point is mute. Because you can't be an activist and a researcher at the same time. You cannot master both of those.
So let me ask you a question.
Are you a chemist? Are you a biochemist?
Hold on.
Do you have a laboratory, and can you show us a field research where you have done the actual research yourself? No, you can't.
But that doesn't make me a researcher, because that doesn't make you not a researcher.
We're the activists.
Hold on. Where did you get your information from? You had to research
by
it, right?
By reading the researchers.
Okay, and that's a form of research, because you know what researchers do?
Yeah, but
they have two forms of research. It's called study, and then it's called experimentation. So although we don't have the labs for the field research and the experimentation, we can read those of others and take the footnotes and the information left behind by other scientists and compare notes. So now what I'm doing is showing you clear facts right here from National Geographic's, because this is not Minister Inky's information. This is National Geographic's information, and National Geographic's is a foundation formed by Europeans, so they have no reason to bullshit about their genetic makeup. And it says, the genetic study team reached their conclusion after comparing the genomes of 5 living humans from China, France, New Guinea, Africa, Southern Africa, and Western Africa. The results showed that Neanderthal DNA is 99.7% identical to modern human DNA versus, for example, 98.8% of modern humans and chimps, according to the study. In addition, all modern ethnic groups other than Africans carry traces of Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. Let me read that again, and let me read that slowly.
I know that research.
In addition, all modern ethnic groups other than Africans carry traces of Neanderthal DNA. Other than Africans. When they say other than Africans, what they mean is that Africans do not carry traces of Neanderthal DNA.
And that all non-Africans living today are part Neanderthal. And that all non-Africans living today are part Neanderthal. And that all non-Africans living today are part Neanderthal.
Now, if all species came from the African, guess what? Africans would have traces of Neanderthal DNA. However, since there are no traces, not little traces, not minute traces, no traces, that means, guess what? There are at least two separate species.
Well, let me ask you this.
Hold on. One species of man that is African, and another species which produced the Neanderthal, which is the reason why there are no species of African now that contain traces of Neanderthal DNA. So when we're dealing with science, now we're not dealing with, see, I'm not going to say it's Tahuti's information.
What did you pull up to get the
National
internet?
Geographic.
No, what did you pull up to get the internet?
Oh, Minister Inky, that's not a researcher, comes with internet ready to get busy at all times. I'm walking with research so I can get busy.
Why you don't get one of those, Tahuti?
Because he's an activist. He's not a researcher.
All right, but listen.
He knows that.
First and foremost,
hold on.
And they did a study.
Hold on. Does that mitochondrial DNA stay pure? Generation to generation?
Well, it deteriorates as well.
Oh, oh boy. We got you on all kind of videos, Tahuti.
No, I never said, listen, the farthest back that they could trace mitochondrial DNA is 200,000 years.
Okay.
Are we to say that life is only 200,000 years? No, what it means is that, listen, what it means is that is the most common recent ancestor from 200,000 years ago was female, and that all people on the planet Earth have mitochondrial DNA that traces back to one single female on the planet 200,000 years ago in East Africa.
Okay.
That's what the research shows. So it shows that white folks, Chinese people, and all ethnicities can trace back their mitochondrial DNA to one black female on the planet.
Okay, now let me go to something else right here. We're dealing with the ASPM gene. The new allele of ASPM appeared sometime between 14,000 and 500 years ago, with the mean estimate of 5,800 years. That's an average, right? The estimated age of the ASPM allele 5,800 years ago roughly correlates with the development of written language, agriculture, and the development of cities. And we know that we have cities that were much more ancient than that, because we know where we left our pyramids. We know our pyramids in Giza are 10,000 years ago. We know the pyramids in South America are much older. So we know when they're referring to these cities that popped up 5,800 years ago, they're talking about Europe. However, they specify that the new allele is only in people of Middle East and European descent. It's much less frequent in Asia and has no traces in Africa.
Just because it doesn't have a trace in Africa.
Let me just say something. Well, let me just quote my man Jay-Z. Grand opening, grand closing. Hot damn, your man Hove cracked the can open again. Who you gonna find doper than him?
All right. First and foremost, what he is negating is this: people migrated out of Africa, and what we have to understand about genes, they all degenerate. Just like I talked about mitochondrial DNA, we can trace it back 200,000 years ago. It does not mean that that was the first human being. What it means is that it is the most common recent ancestor, because DNA material degenerates. The same way man has mitochondrial DNA, but why the hell he can't pass it off? Because it degenerates right in his own semen. It falls off. It's too loose. It falls. You understand what I'm saying to you? So therefore, this is what they're failing to understand. Africans migrated outside of Africa, and that's what the research shows. Now, in order to debunk this, you are going against eminent scholars, such as Professor Charles French. You're going against one of our most eminent scholars of all, Sheikh Anta Diop. Then you got Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. You got Dr. Richard King, MD. And all of them agree that Europeans are degenerate Africans. They all are albinos that mutated in the ice. Again, like I said, not just because you was in the ice makes it a fact that you will degenerate, but if you're already in a diseased state, such as albinism. Albinism is a deformed cell. The albino cells are deformed. Therefore, it is going to produce a deformed human being, and that's what the albino is. Again, white folks are albinos that mutated in the ice, and the reason they mutated is because they had an inbreeding. Because the African ostracized them. You understand what I'm saying? They had parental rejection, according to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
When did the African ostracize them? Because
according
to your information,
I'm using. Listen, let me finish.
Okay,
you gotta let me finish first. Then you ask the question.
Right.
According to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, white folks experience parental rejection. That Africans that gave birth to albinos ostracized them from their communities. Them not being able to withstand the hot rays of the African climate, the hot heat of African climate, they gathered together and migrated toward Europe. Okay. They were bottlenecked in Europe for over 20,000 years. From them inbreeding with one another, ancestral relationships, as well as the albino on albino, the gene began to mutate. The phenol features we see originate from them being in the cold ice, and the evidence is there. For you to go against the research is to go against Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
That's fine.
It's to go against Professor Charles French.
Sheikh Anta Diop.
And Sheikh Anta Diop Ashe.
Put Superman in there, put Aquaman in there, put Jesus Christ in there, and it's fine because I'm just dealing with facts. So what I'm saying is,
you're not dealing with facts.
I'm not trying to
let him go now, Tahoe.
I'm not trying to denigrate the previous teachers, because this is the thing we have to understand. The eminent scholars at the time in Europe, I'm going to use Europeans for an example. They believed at a time that the world was flat.
Europeans, not Africans.
Hold on. But the premise, it doesn't matter who the person was. The premise is this. The current research at that time, right? When people were born in Europe at that time, when they looked at the research of the researchers that came before them, it said that the world was flat. So they understood to their best of the information that they could gather that the world was flat. If you come here, fast forward to us, African American scholars, right? You could pull some of those same African American scholars up, and if they did get into science, they'll tell you, oh yeah, well, you had an atom, and an atom was composed of a nucleus inside of the atom, which held the proton. Outside that, you had other subatomic particles called electrons. Now, advancements in science which means we have technology at our hands that allows us to take a much more in-depth look at these things. We've come to find out that an electron is not a particle. Okay, that we even found out that particles are not particles. So what I'm saying is as we live and we learn and we study, theories change. Facts remain the same. Theories remain the same. That was a theory that was espoused without DNA research. So, yes, our scholars did what they could do. They gathered the research that they had at the time, and they put forth the best theory they could with the research. But when you deal with that research, you got to understand that those were theories. What I'm telling you is fact. It is a genetic fact that there are no Africans on the planet that have Neanderthal DNA, brother. Period.
What is a Neanderthal? First of all, what is a Neanderthal?
A Neanderthal is a
agree with
caveman.
that. And he's going on about how we're black here because we're in darkness. We don't know anything about our history, our culture, where we came from. How his parents named him a name that has meaning. So he's not in darkness. He's not black. He's never been black. He's about 3 shades, 4 shades darker than you, right? But he's saying nigga. And he's saying niggas. And in his comments, he's saying niggas, right? So I hit him up. I said, I find it interesting that you're not black, but you're a nigga. How can this be? This is perplexing to me, right? That you identify with being a nigga, but you don't identify with being black. And this fool sent me an email back. And listen to this weak ass shit that he said, right? There you go to think you know anything about me and you don't know nothing. The word nigga comes from Niger. Niger is the name of the river. Yes, it was named by Europeans, just like mostly everything on earth is named by the Greek descendants. And just like you say, a lot of Nigerians are scattered all across the world. So, my friend, it's just that you are washed. You and your people, like you, don't want to identify with the culture of your descendants, he mean to say ancestors. So like you, to dislocate yourself from Africa and its people. So what's wrong with being a Niger man? Or let me say in English, a nigga, Niger. It's still the same thing. Now, that is the utmost flipping cowardly ignorance.
What's
right?
his name, the brother that wrote that?
Atticus.
Okay, he go by the name of Atticus.
That's his channel on YouTube. Now, that is the utmost cowardly ignorance. Because before I came over here, I stopped by a shop that one of my brothers owns, and he's from Niger, right? Niger was named by the French, as Nigeria was named by the English. These are not words indigenous to Africa. They are not words indigenous to the African people, right? Even the term Africa is not something that we called ourselves or referred to ourselves or that land prior to contact with Europeans. This is what they called us. This is what they called the place. Just like they called the natives here Indians because they mistakenly thought they were in the Indies. You understand? So to this day, you have people walking around talking about they're Indians. There's no such thing as an Indian. There's no such thing as an African. These are European mistakes, okay? So to accept a mistake and then to run with the mistake is just ignorance. And then to attempt to use pidgin English, which Niger, man, is pidgin English, and try to come at me, Brother Larry, with that weak ass bullshit, right, is not only insulting to me, but it should be insulting to your parents. Because if you're saying that you're a nigga, you're also saying that your mother's a nigga, your father's a nigga, your grandmother's a nigga, your grandfather's a nigga, and everybody in your goddamn culture. So
For you to accept that and for you to think that there's nothing wrong with that is insane. And then you're posting videos talking about Africans versus African Americans as if there's some type of war going on between our peoples. The only war,
wait till I get by.
The only war that's going on is a war of ignorance. I was building with another brother who posts on YouTube under the name of Jollof Boy, right?
Jollof Boy?
Jollof Boy. That's like jollof rice. It's an African dish, right? But I was building with the brother, and the brother said, well, what do you think is better for us to go with Africa because Africa's established, right? Or to make up a new name for ourselves, right? And I wrote the brother back and told him that it would be better for us to make our own name up. That way we could actually bring our people in from all over the world under the same banner, under the same heading, and raise our children to know themselves for who and what they are, as opposed to who and what someone else thinks they are. I was just building with a brother from Africa in the shop that I went to, and this is the brother's card. He's an artist from Canada, right?
Well, hold on.
Hold up, Iggy. I'm gonna get you in there, right? But I was building with the brother, and the brother confirms what I tell you about the word nigga. This is not us. This is not who we are. It is foreign to the African continent, right? And in the same vein, I explained to the brother. The brother said, no, this is not how we knew ourselves. And even the brother Jollof Boy said that in the ancient times, a lot of the African people never left the area where their villages were. So they didn't know outside of the village. So to extend the name to the entire geographical continent of Africa is insane. This is a European practice. They think they can own trees.
Hold up, I want to ask him what we was building on earlier.
Okay, no, but before we jump the subject,
let Iggy get in,
because I'm not gonna. We already done duped it out.
Yeah, but I want
plenty of times on nigga, negro, and all that. The point that I do want to make is that the difference between the American black and the African black, the beef that's there goes back a long ways. When you look at politics nowadays, right? Any country that has, you go to war, whatever the case may be, you have prisoners of war taken away. Which you can look at part of the slave trade as prisoners of war, okay? That country, when they get back on their feet, when they get their senses back together, they eventually go back and make a claim for their people to bring them back. They did not. In fact, the Europeans came down and knew that they were outmanned and outmatched. So what they did was cleverly hired Africans to bondage who they wanted to bondage and send over here. So it goes all the way back to those original tribes that picked and choose who they wanted to put on those boats and sent them over here selectively. You know what I mean? So what you're looking at is the progenitor of that, still with the same brainwash in his mind, and he can't establish what he's trying to say in factual terms, because what they would like to do is promote some sort of African supremacy over the American blacks. You see? So, but there's no way to factually establish that, because living in Africa, you should be much more aware of your history. So you shouldn't have to come search and debate with an American who is far outclassed you, because from what I've seen, because I caught his little stuff online.
Oh, you saw it too?
I caught his stuff online, yeah. You know, he's outmatched by Larry. And usually, I'll tell you in a second, Larry ain't ready, but no. He's clearly outmatched by Larry. His information has no factual basis, and he's just promoting the same old shit that put us on boats 400, 500 years ago.
Okay, in addition, he says in his video that he blames us for the world knowing Africans as black. You understand? He actually says that he blames us, and he says that we're black because we're in darkness, that we don't have any information, any cultural awareness. And that's why I made the video, and I said we are aware of the fact that we were betrayed. You understand? We are aware of the fact that we were sold out to Europeans, because no Europeans got off a ship
on the coast of Africa and marched into the interior and marched no people out. That didn't happen. You understand? They were marched out by traders.
Now, here's what I want you to deal with before you leave, man. I got two questions I want you to deal with. The first one, I want you to deal with the Moors that you saw, where the brother was talking about when he was dealing with the empire.
Yeah, in Europe.
Right. Go into that. Where you say you disagree with that.
First of all, respect to the brother for attempting to deal with the historical subject of I'm not going to say Africans, because they weren't Africans at the time, right? At that time, they were known to Europeans as Moors because of the Moorish conquest of Spain, right? Which occurred in 711 AD under the leadership of Tariq ibn Zayd, right? Or Zaid. Now, in successive waves, they were reinforced by the next group of Moors called the Almoravids, right? Because they felt these guys had got over there and got laxed. Because like a lot of our people do, when they get around white women, they want white women and they want to party and bullshit. Okay? So they came and shored them up. Now, we've seen this same phenomena occur in ancient Kemet as well, which is why successive waves of southern black people came up and conquered, like Pianki and Tahaka, right? To reinforce the rule of our ancestors. Now, back to the Moors, right? The brother's making the point. The brother's making the point that the Holy Roman Emperor, the Holy Roman Empire, right, was actually Moorish, which is, I'm going to be polite, is not true. Right? The first Holy Roman Emperor was a German dude named Charlemagne. That was 800 AD, right? This is not BC, we're talking about AD, 800, right? He made mention of the fact that the Ottomans overthrew the Roman Empire. That's factually incorrect. The Western Roman Empire collapsed under a barbarian named Odoacer, who was a German. That was 476 AD. The Eastern or Byzantine Empire, which was the Eastern Roman Empire, fell in 1453 under the Young Turks. They're known to history as Young Turks, not Ottomans. The Ottoman Empire came later under, I believe, a guy by the name of Suleiman, right? Was the first Ottoman emperor. Now, what you have to know, pause that.